Alright, now we've got our game logic completed and we are ready to translate it into JavaScript or jQuery code. So if you go to our index.html file, at the end of the body element, we'll need to write our script. So we've got already the script tags there and they are linking our index.html file to an external file. This is from the previous maths project. So we're going to change the name of this to jQuery.js. And we will create a new file called jQuery.js. Alright, so our code is going to go in there. So again, we don't need the script tags. We can write our code straight away. But first, we are just going to write comments to understand the structure of our code. So first of all, once we click on the Start Reset button, we are going to check if we are playing. Then if we are playing, then we will reload the page. If we are not playing, then we are going to do a few things. So first of all, we are going to show the trials left box. And also we are going to change the button to, or the button text to reset game. And also, we are going to create a random fruit. And then we are going to move the fruit down by one step. And we're going to do that in loops every 30 seconds. So we will need to define this step, and we're going to do that later on in the code. So we can either go for a fixed step, and in that case, the speed of our fruit is going to be the same all the time. Otherwise, just before this action, we can define a random step that we're going to use for the next fruit, which means that every new fruit we send down is going to have a different speed. So before we continue, let's just name this step number 1 and this one number 2. We're going to need this later to make our structure easier to read. So once we sent or we moved our fruit down by one step, we are going to check if the fruit is too low. So if the fruit is not too low, then we are going to move it down by another step, which means that we're gonna repeat number 2. Otherwise, if the fruit is too low, then we are going to ask the question, do we have any trials left? So if we do have trials left, which means the answer is yes, we are going to create a new random fruit, remove one heart, and repeat this, which means that we're going to be going back to number 1, or repeat number 1. Otherwise, if we have no trials left, then we are going to show game over, and our button text is going to change to starts game. Alright, now let's move to the other sequence where we slice a fruit. So if we slice a fruit, we do a couple of things. First, we are going to play sound in the background, and also we are going to explode the fruits. Alright, now our jQuery code structure is completed and we are ready to start writing some jQuery code. But before doing that, we'll need to go back to our index.html file and embed jQuery just before our script, so that we can use the jQuery functions inside our script. So to do that, I'm going to use the Google CDN for this. So we can just go to Google and type jQuery Google API or CDN. And if you go to the first link, then jQuery, and you can copy this line. And now we've got jQuery embedded into our HTML file. And we can start writing jQuery inside our JavaScript file. So first of all, we're going to need to wrap all our code inside the document ready function. And if you remember, the syntax was select function and then parenthesis and curly brackets. So all our jQuery code is going to go inside these curly brackets. So first, once we click on the Start Reset button, we are going to check if we are playing or not. So to do this, we're going to need to access the button using its ID. So you're going to need to use the jQuery selector. And the syntax to access the button using its ID is using $ followed by the ID. And if you remember, the ID of the button was Start Reset. So then we are going to use the click method as the action is clicking, and this method is going to take as a parameter a function which we will execute once we click on the Start Reset button. So inside the curly brackets of our function, we are going to write our code. So first of all, we are going to check if we are playing or not. So let's just add these comments to our code. So if we are already playing, which means the answer is yes. So we're going to use an if statement for this. So to check if we are playing or not, we're going to need a variable like we did in the maths game. This variable, we're going to call it playing. It's going to be a boolean. All right. So when we load the page, we are not playing. So initially, our variable is going to be false. So if we are playing, means if playing equals, we need two equal signs, true. So if we are playing, what we're going to do, we're going to reload the page. So to reload the page, the syntax is location.reload. And this piece of code is going to reload our page. Alright, now if we are not playing, then we are going to execute this list of actions. So we're going to use an else statement for not playing. And before going through these actions, we will just change our playing mode to true. as we are now playing. Because once we start the game, we change from the non-playing mode to playing mode. Now our game is initiated. Next, before showing the trials left box, we are going to show or set our score to 0. So we can see 0 there, but it's by default 0. Now we're going to set it using jQuery. So first we're going to need a variable that we're going to call score. So we're going to set that to 0. And also, we are going to change this element to 0 using jQuery. Because if you remember, in the index.html file, we have written 0 inside the span. But as by default, when we load the page, we see 0. But once we start the game, we want to set this to 0 using jQuery. So to do that, we're going to access this element using its ID, which is score value. That's the ID of our element. And we are going to set the HTML of this element using the HTML method to the value of the variable score. Alright, now let's just add some space to our code to make it more readable. Okay. Moving on, we are going now to show the trials left box. So once we start the game, we can see the number of hearts showing how many trials we've got left. So first we're going to make this box appear, and then we're going to fill it with hearts. So to make the box appear, we are going to access it using its ID. And the ID of this box was trials left. And then we're going to use a jQuery function. It's called show. So this function is going to show the box. So let's try this. If we save the code and click on the Start Game button, then now we can see the box there. So we want to show 3 hearts at the beginning when we just start the game. And this means that we've got 3 trials when we initiate the game. So to do this, we're going to need a variable that we're going to call trials left, which will tell us how many trials we've got left. So initially, we're going to set this variable to 3, as we're going to have 3 trials left. And then we are going to append a number of hearts equal to the number of trials left to our box. So to do that, we are going to use a for loop. So every time we go inside the loop, we are going to add a little heart to our trials left box. And to do that, we're going to use the method append to append an image to our box. So first, we are going to access the box using its ID, which is trials left. And then we are going to use this method append to append the image. So at the beginning, just to make things easy, we are going to append a letter X with some space, and then we'll change that later to an image. So we're going to set our parameter that we're going to call I to 0 initially, and the condition is going to be I less than the number of trials left, and every time I goes up by 1. So let's try this, save and make sure it's working. So if we click on the stars game, we can see 3 X's there. All right. Later on, we're going to use the same code to set the number of hearts inside the trial box to 2 hearts or 1 heart. So it would be easier to place this inside a function that we're going to call add hearts. So we're calling the function here, and we are going to define the function at the end. And now we are just going to paste our code there. All right, so rather than appending the letter X, we would need to append a little heart just like this. So we're going to need a picture. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a new folder inside our project folder. We're going to call this images. And we're going to add a picture in there. So we're going to go to our Logo Maker website and look for a heart picture. Let's go for this one. We're going to change the color to a red color. That looks fine. And we're going to save our picture. And just remember to copy the credits and place them somewhere on your website. This is really important.